Okay, so what happens when these major historical worlds, Celtic, Germanic, Slavic,
Mm.
when they don't just brush past each other?
Right, but they actually collide and
Yeah.
then sort of blend together in one really key spot.
Exactly. That's what we're digging into today. We're heading right into the heart of Europe.
Yeah, we're focusing on the Czech Republic. Researchers think it holds, well, one of Europe's most fascinating genetic stories, a real mix.
It's acted like a biological highway for thousands of years, hasn't it? Seeing all these migrations and cultures funnel through.
It really has.
So our mission here is to try and decode this gene map of the Czechs.
Mm.
Explore the sort of hidden patterns left by history movements, migrations, even battles.
And what makes the Czech gene, if you can call it that, so special isn't just the diversity itself.
No.
No, it's also why the findings are sparking such pretty heated debate. You see it in academia, but also, in nationalist discussions.
Okay, interesting. So to get a handle on this, we're looking at various studies, historical accounts too.
Exactly. We've pulled from a range of sources to see what the scientists found and also what historians point to about this unique genetic landscape.
Right. Let's start with the numbers then, because the genetic picture sounds, well, a bit surprising.
It is, yeah.
You'd maybe expect mostly Slavic genes,
Really?
right, culturally speaking.
That's the common assumption. But what researchers found is definitely richer, more complex.
Oh, so.
Well, okay, over 35% of Czech men do belong to haplogroup R1A. And for listeners, that's a genetic signature passed down the father's line. Really common in Slavic nations, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, places like that.
Okay, 35% R1A makes sense.
But
Yeah.
there's also a really significant and kind of surprising 25% chunk of haplogroup R1B.
R1B, that's the one more dominant in Western Europe.
Exactly. Think France, Spain, even Britain. So finding 25% of that in a population often labeled Slavic is, well, it makes you look closer.
25% is definitely substantial.
It's
That's
definitely
specific implications. And did they find other, older genetic echoes too?
Yeah, that's another fascinating part. They found traces of much older European roots, things like U5 and H mitochondrial DNA lineages. These are passed down the mother's side.
Okay.
And these show up in higher than average amounts, suggesting this amazing genetic continuity stretching way back, maybe even to Paleolithic Europe.
Wow. So it's this blend, ancient and modern.
Precisely. Researchers talk about Czechs being both ancient Europeans and modern hybrids, shaped by deep roots, but also all those roads, the migrations and movements.
Roots and roads. I like that. It captures the complexity. How does that help us trace the timeline? Where does the story really begin in this region?
Well, historians stress that Bohemia, that's the Western Czech Republic now, wasn't always Slavic. It was actually a stronghold for Celtic tribes.
Celts, really.
Oh, yeah. Particularly the Boy tribe. In
Right.
fact, the name Bohemia itself comes directly from them. It's a clear linguistic link right back to those ancient people.
That's incredible. And didn't the Romans also leave a footprint later on?
They did. It wasn't like a full conquest everywhere, but they set up military outposts, trade routes. You find Latin inscriptions, Roman artifacts, so another layer added to that early mix.
Okay, Celts, Romans.
Yeah.
But then came this huge shift, right? The Slavic expansion in the 6th, 7th centuries. That must have really changed the genetic picture.
Oh, absolutely. It was a massive change, introduced a very significant new genetic element. It's like a whole new chapter opened up.
But did it completely overwrite what was there before?
Well, that's what's so intriguing. Despite these huge movements, some genetic studies suggest those original Celtic genes, and maybe others, never entirely disappeared. They kind of persisted underneath.
So you end up with this complex, layered identity.
Exactly. It's like one part tribal, one part imperial from the Romans, and one part migratory from the Slavs,
Right.
all mixed together over centuries.
And this is where it gets, well, tricky, right?
Mm.
And maybe controversial.
Uh-huh.
Because if you look at language, Czech is Slavic. If you look at culture, national identity, it aligns with Slavic culture.
Yes.
But genetically, it sounds like a different story is emerging, one that's causing some fierce debate.
That's spot on. While language and culture point Slavic, the genetics seem to suggest Czechs are actually more Western than Eastern compared to many other Slavic groups.
More Western. So if you put them on a genetic map, where do they actually cluster? Closer to Russians or Poles or...
Well, studies show they're genetically closer to Austrians and Germans.
Really? Closer to Germans and Austrians than to, say, Russians or Ukrainians.
Yeah. And sometimes genetic studies actually group them with Central Europeans rather than strictly East Slavs.
I can see how that would cause some discomfort, especially for people who see identity very strongly through that Slavic cultural lens.
Absolutely. It causes discomfort for some cultural purists, you could say. It challenges traditional narratives.
So it really boils down to this fundamental and pretty sensitive question. Are Czechs defined by their genes or by their language and culture? Is identity blood or is it belonging?
Exactly. And this isn't just an academic debate. It sparks really heated discussions online, especially in diaspora communities, where identity can be tied up with politics and deep emotions.
It shows how these scientific findings can have real social impact, touching on these core ideas of who we are.
Precisely. And it doesn't stop there. Researchers have even started exploring some, well, more speculative links between Czech DNA and certain traits.
Speculative links, like what?
Well, things like lactose tolerance, for instance.
Okay, lactose tolerance, how does that fit in?
It seems Czechs have higher rates of lactose tolerance than most other Slavic nations.
And the theory is?
The theory is that this might be linked to that Western gene flow we talked about, the R1b connection. Lactose tolerance is generally more common in Western and Northern Europe. It's like a subtle genetic hint of those ancient connections.
Interesting. And what about, I read something about alcohol metabolism, given the famous Czech love for beer.
Right. There are studies looking at variations in alcohol dehydrogenase genes, the ones involved in breaking down alcohol. It's certainly an interesting correlation to study in a region with such high per capita beer consumption.
Almost sounds like the gene's trying to adapt to the culture.
Maybe. And then there are physical traits. Researchers note Czechs tend to be among Europe's taller populations, and they have high rates of light eye colors, which are also common further north in Europe.
But we should be careful here, right? These traits aren't only found in Czechs, and saying gene X causes trait Y is usually way too simplistic.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial caveat. These are correlations and potential links, not definitive proof of genetic destiny or anything like that. The science is still very much developing, quite speculative.
But they add to this overall picture this kind of mystique of a blended heritage.
Exactly. They offer intriguing avenues for more research, even if we don't have all the answers today.
Okay, so we've looked at the past, the genes, the debates. What about today? What does all this mean for the Czech Republic's role in genetic research now?
Well, it's actually become a pretty important hub.
How so?
The Czech Republic is now a significant center for biomedical and genetic research. That uniquely diverse population we've been talking about, it offers really valuable insights.
Insights into what, specifically?
Everything from understanding genetic disorders, finding clues to track ancient human migrations across Europe, and even practical stuff like developing personalized medicine. That rich mix of genes is a fantastic resource for scientists.
And it's not just looking at the country as one block, is it? I heard there's work tracing regional differences within the Czech lands.
That's right. There's a growing focus on comparing, say, Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia. Each region had slightly different historical paths, different levels of influence from neighbors.
So potentially slightly different genetic nuances, too.
Exactly. It's like zooming in further, getting an even finer-grained picture of this genetic tapestry. A deep dive within the deep dive, you could say.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. Back to that core question. Why is the Czech gene, this genetic story, so special? What's the main takeaway?
I think it's special because it just doesn't fit neatly into any single category. It's ancient, but it's also clearly adaptive. It's Slavic in culture, but has this strong Western genetic element. It's incredibly diverse, yet it forms a coherent population.
Kind of bridge.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. A living genetic bridge between the old tribes and the later empires, between East and West, between the ancient world and the modern nation.
And maybe the biggest takeaway for us, for you listening, is that identity is just... it's never simple, is it?
Not at all. It's layered. It evolves.
Yeah.
And there's always more to discover.
It really makes you think, do our genes ultimately define who we are as a nation? Or is culture, in the end, stronger than DNA? Something to ponder.